So when you think of Virgil and his moveset, what move is first to come to mind?
You shall die. I am the storm that is approaching.
It's most likely gonna be the Judgement current, so I came up with the genius idea of beating the entirety of Devil May Cry 5 using only the Judgement current. Is it possible? Well, you're about to find out. Please like and subscribe. I suffered a lot during this challenge. So, rules. Obviously, if I hit enemies with a move that isn't a Judgement current, I reset checkpoint. That is really about it. So we begin in the prologue and reach our first combat encounter. So to pull off a Judgement current, you have to do a couple of things first. First of all, you have to fill up the concentration gauge, or as I like to call it, the motivation meter, up to here, which is fairly easy to do. You can do it by locking on or jumping. And second of all, you have to have Sin Devil Trigger fully built up, and to do that, I need to build Devil Trigger. Now normally, to build up Devil Trigger, you have to fight. Not here, obviously. There's a few ways I was able to build up Devil Trigger with, such as jump cancelling. If I jump cancel the enemies for long enough, I'd be able to get enough DT to fill up my Sin Devil Trigger gauge. It was not the most efficient way to do it, as taunting existed. Now, Virgil has plenty of taunts that give a good amount of Devil Trigger, but at first I thought his EX provocation would be the best, which I spent all of prologue using, but I was wrong, since funny enough, before I managed to pull off a single Judgement current, the Impusa escaped. But I had my Sin Devil Trigger gauge filled up, so we managed to pull off our first Judgement current of the run, and it killed everyone instantly. It takes one singular JCE to kill red and green Impusas. The next fight introduced the Impusa Queen, and they took a lot more than just one JCE. They weren't that difficult to kill though. She took about 5 Judgement currents, and if I run out of Sin Devil Trigger, it was very easy to just jump cancel off of the Impusa Queen to earn some. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. And then we were on to Urizen. Oh dear god, Urizen. Luckily, I don't have to worry about him here for now, since you're meant to lose this fight to continue. So, moving on to mission 1, it was also really easy, since you do not have to kill a single enemy until you get to the boss fight. So I spent a bit just jump cancelling off of the Impusas to fill my Sin Devil Trigger gauge, and then I also filled up my Devil Trigger to have a spare stock of Sin Devil Trigger for when I run out. Now, the boss fight was also very easy, but here's the thing. If I get hit once, it doesn't matter if I'm mid-animation. If I get hit, I lose all of my motivation meter. So therefore, I wouldn't be able to perform a Judgement current. So then I'd have to exit out of Sin Devil Trigger, build up my motivation meter, and then refill my SDT gauge so that I can perform Judgement currents again. It wasn't that much of an issue here, but I did get hit a few times on this fight and lost motivation meter. Luckily, this boss summons Hell and Tenors that I could jump cancel off of to build Sin Devil Trigger. I had to reset once because I accidentally hit the boss with Yamato. But apart from that, this was very easy.
You shall die.
Mission 2 is where things start getting interesting, as this is the first proper long mission in the game. The first fight introduces the Death Scissors, which weren't too bad in this encounter. They took about 3 Judgement currents to kill. Their big scissors protecting them didn't really matter, so there was no need to waste Judgement currents destroying them beforehand. So that's good. And then the next fight contained 3 Hell Canas and 2 Death Scissors. The Canas died after 2 Judgement currents, but I ran out of Sin Devil Trigger to kill the Death Scissors, so I ended up jump cancelling them for a bit before they met their demise. I lost a bit of health in the hotel room, but it wasn't that bad, and the room where the Hell Canas and green Impusas was also no problem. The fight with the 2 Antinoras, I ended up jump cancelling to earn Devil Trigger, and then they died. Easy. But okay, next up we have Goliath. I know I skimmed over this mission really fast, but most of it is literally just basic enemies that die in like 3 Judgement currents. But yeah, Goliath took me a few tries. The first try, I accidentally hit him inside of the church, so I had to reset. The second time, I took too much damage early on and died about halfway through the fight. Or there was one where I got him very low but ended up getting sucked in. So yeah, not fun. But on the winning run, what I did was I spent the entirety of being on top of the church farming Devil Trigger by jump cancelling on Goliath. Inside of the church, I managed to hit him with 4 Judgement currents before taking the fight outside. I had to jump cancel again to get some Devil Trigger, but Goliath has an attack where he slams the ground and then doesn't move for a bit, which was basically free Devil Trigger for me. During the Judgement currents, I get hit, so I turn off Sin Devil Trigger to not waste it while I get my motivation meter back. When he tried to suck me in, I spammed Judgement currents and hoped for the best. It worked. Near the end of the fight, it got a bit dicey due to my health amount, but luckily I managed to take him out. Overall, Goliath was not that bad. Mission 3 started off easy. Keyword, started off. It introduced a few new enemies. The first few fights were easy. They introduced the Pyrobats, which died quite fast, and yeah, I'm just gonna mention this now. Breaking Climax routes doesn't count towards the challenge. There were many moments where I had to break them with no Sin Devil Trigger. So yeah, just ignore those and just pretend that Judgement ended them. Yeah. The next fight introduced the Lusasha, and they got really annoying if I didn't kill them quick, because they have these purple orbs that track you and they can very easily hit me and take out my motivation meter. And the first try I went into this fight with no Sin Devil trigger, and the Lusasha broke my motivation meter and I accidentally ended up upper slashing, so I reset and ended up farming Devil trigger on these riots here, which ended up working like a charm. Lusashas also have different projectiles and a move where they cause an explosion on me, but those really didn't bother me in this fight here particularly. And then the riots also die really quickly here. The issue with riots is that they do a lot of damage, but they're not that bad if they actually do not hit me. They die in about 2 to 3 Judgement Currents, and there is also an explosive barrel in this room which helps, so as long as I watched out for the riots attacks, I was good. Then the fight with the 3 death scissors really should have been a first try, but my dumbass somehow accidentally ended up Judgement cutting it, so after restarting the checkpoint and having to do the previous fight again, fun, I got past the death scissors, no problem. I had to jump cancel them a bit to gain some DT back in between the death scissors, but it's okay. But okay, now there was a bit of an issue. Artemis. This was so hard. First off, I went into this fight with a quarter of my health. I really could have just reset the mission and get to this bit with more health, but I did not because I am stubborn. And second of all, Artemis just got really annoying. So I started off jump cancelling off of her to gain some Devil Trigger. The problem was that she would constantly fly away and fire off attacks, one of which she does really fast where she summons these things right next to her, which knocked me off while jump cancelling. The rest of her attacks weren't too bad, but after a few Judgement cut-ins, she would shoot out her chesticles at me, and that's where the fight became living hell, because if I didn't kill them the moment she summons them, they make the fight practically impossible. They fire off projectiles and circles, which got very annoying to dodge, and it was very hard to keep the motivation meter up. They also made it very hard to farm Devil Trigger, because I constantly had to jump away from Artemis to avoid the circles, and I had no way of killing them since using anything other than JCAs would break the rules, and since I didn't have any Devil Trigger, I had no Judgement cut-ins, so yeah! And I even died embarrassingly to the insanely long charge-up attack that Artemis does, because I had no way to grapple up because I messed up jump cancelling. I was stuck here forever. I tried to maximize my damage as best as possible. I did 1 Judgement cut end instead of 4 at the beginning of the fight. She wouldn't summon her things just yet, which gave me more time to farm Devil Trigger. It took 1 Judgement cut end to kill her purple things. They would turn into homing projectiles that were pretty easy to dodge. The issue was that she would summon them really often, and by the time she summoned them again, I wouldn't have a Devil Trigger bar to use Judgement cut ends, which meant I was basically done for. So I had to be more strategic with how I use my Judgement cut ends. I also learned that during the first phase of the fight, as long as I kept tricking up to Artemis after she flies away, she would never do an attack, which became a really quick way to farm Devil Trigger at the start of the fight. When she did her long charge up attack, I used it as an opportunity to farm Devil Trigger and then use Judgement cut ends to knock her out of it. And during the winning attempt, I actually ended up attacking very sparingly. Instead of using the entire Sin Devil Trigger bar on 4 Judgement cut ends the moment I got them, I only ended up doing a 1 or 2, and only when she would summon her things. 1 to kill them, and the second one for extra damage to Artemis. This then gave me enough time to refill my Sin Devil Trigger gauge before she summoned them again. And I rinsed and repeated until eventually I won. Thank God, because this took forever, and it wouldn't be the only major issue I've encountered during this run. Trust me, there is many. But okay, mission 4 up next, and this mission introduces the Behemoth, which I had a few problems with at first because when they Devil Trigger, they do a lot of damage. And plus they take a lot of Judgement cut ends to kill, especially because they have armor that you have to break. Their attack where they run around like crazy got me killed a bunch in this fight, and I figured that jump cancelling isn't that safe to do on these guys. So this is the mission in which I started using taunts more to earn DT instead of jump cancelling. Specifically one taunt that Virgil has where he takes out Yamato, twirls it around and then sheaths it. It rewards 3 bars of Devil Trigger with no cooldown. The only issue is that it takes a while for the animation to end, but luckily the game has this thing called camera manipulation where if you keep the camera off the enemy, they pacify, and as long as I stayed in range of the enemies and I didn't have my camera on them, I could just spam taunt until I had enough to pop Sin Devil Trigger and do Judgement cut ends to kill the Behemoth. Another issue is that if my style rank gets higher, then it becomes harder to get this taunt, so I had to keep my style between a D and a C most of the time. I had to jump around if the Behemoth got too close, but we got through after a few attempts. This mission also introduces the nobodies, which are more annoying than difficult. See, they start shooting out explosive eyeballs, and if they hit me at the start of a Judgement cut end, I lose all of my motivation meter, and I'd have to farm it up again, but other than that, they aren't that bad. They get knocked down pretty easily, so I can do more Judgement cut ends that way, or either farm Devil Trigger if I have to. I did an optional fight that is walled off to get some health back. Safe to say I succeeded. And then the next fight contained a Hell Judaica, which I thought are gonna be annoying. They were a complete joke. The moment you hit them with a Judgment Current, they fall onto the ground, and then you could pull off a few more and then they die. Seriously, that is literally it. They cannot do a single move on you as long as you Judgment Current them fast. And then there was Nidhogg, which actually ended up being a bit more difficult than I thought he would be. Not really because of the boss itself, Nidhogg's attacks were piss easy to avoid, but it's the fact that it's very hard to farm Devil Trigger on this fight. So the first attempt, I accidentally Judgment Current Nidhogg. I am indeed stupid. At first I tried to jump cancel Nidhogg, but after a bit he just dips until you kill his tentacles, so that was a no-go. But since Nidhogg wasn't there, it was less busy on screen. So what I was able to do is run far away from the enemies to give me enough time to dodge their attacks while also being ranged to the Sword Sheath taunt. I used it to fill up Sin Devil Trigger and some Devil Trigger. It was annoying because sometimes I'd have to jump out of the taunt to dodge, but I did manage to pull it off most of the time. But I did kill the tentacles with Judgment Currents, and then I damaged Nidhogg a ton. And after a few good attempts, I took him out before he could even do the whole 3 Nidhogg things. Mission 5 was honestly a breeze. For the first fight, it was against Riots, and I used camera manipulation so that they wouldn't hit me to build up Devil Trigger by taunting, and then I got rid of the Riots by Judgment Cut ending. The second fight, I managed to pull off a few taunts too before the enemy spawned. Then Judgment Cut ended them to death. I ran out of Devil Trigger by the time Judecca showed up, but I jump cancelled off of it and taunted until I got it back. Goodbye! I won't lie, I almost died to the Impusa Queen in the next fight because it kept hitting me during my Judgment Cut ends or taunt. But it wasn't too bad, and then I got even closer to death in the next fight just because I got hit mid-taunt. Thank God for green Impusas. I kinda had to jump around the room and hope to God I don't get hit mid-taunt because I felt that jump cancelling would be too risky here. And it did not help that the nobodies started shooting out eyeballs, so yeah. Luckily, I got a heal from the green Impusas, and after a few Judgment Cut ends, the nobodies died too. Elder Garyon Knight was a joke. I genuinely thought I'd get stuck on him for a while because I had PTSD from my gun-only run. I did it first try. I went into this fight with a full bar of Devil Trigger, which I got from the last fight, and then taunted to fill up some more. Then once all filled up, 8 Judgment Cut ends is all it took. Killed it before it could literally do anything. Mission 6 was annoying, not because it was hard or anything, but because to damage Gilgamesh, you have to jump on top of him and then hit his weak point. Now, hitting the weak point isn't the issue either, but actually jumping to get to it was. See, normally you're meant to hit the grapple things on his legs, then snatch up to the top. But you see, hitting is not allowed, and Judgment Cut ending weak points that don't even do damage to the boss, felt pointless. But there was another option. I'd be able to jump cancel up to the top instead. Now the issue was that it was kind of finicky. If I did this as Nero, it would be so easy because he has literally a triple jump. Virgil doesn't even have a double jump, so what I did was jump cancel as far as I could, and before I fell back down, I used Virgil's trick up ability to get some extra height and managed to get to the top and start damaging it. I used the sheet taunt to build up Devil Trigger and then managed to start hitting it with Judgment Cut ends. I fell down and got knocked down a bunch, but at least I was now somewhat able to get up there. I had to reset once, not because I died, but because I accidentally hit it normally, but the next attempt I got it. Mission 7 introduced spawners, which are pretty useful to me, as in some combat encounters you could jump cancel them very fast without having to worry about getting hit, and they only die in 2 Judgment Cut ends. And in fights such as this one, you don't even have to kill the enemies, you just have to kill the spawner and then you can move on. The next room was easy, the Riots died to Judgment Cut ends really fast and the spawner wasn't an issue either. The next fight again is one where you only have to kill the spawner and it's safe to jump cancel off of it. So yeah. On the next fight, I did reset because I thought I hit a Pyrobat, but looking back at the footage, I don't even think I hit it. And unfortunately, the checkpoint was at the beginning of the mission, so that's fun. And then I had to reset again because this time I actually did hit the enemy. Real fun. I got past it next time. The next room was packed with enemies though. Riots, spawners, dead scissors, but funny enough, 3 Judgment Cut ends is all it took to win. The fight against Proto and Scutto Angelos was also nothing to write home about. It was mostly me running from them and taunting, and 5 Judgment Cut ends was enough to kill all the Scuttos. And since the Proto was the only one left alive, it was even easier since it's really easy to dodge its attack. Okay, except that one. When it Devil Trigger, it would get harder to knock down, so after every Judgment Cut end, I just had to jump over it to avoid its attack. I got hit a few times, had to refill my entire Sin Devil Trigger, and also I almost died, but iframes literally saved me. But after that, it was game. Mission 8 was pretty easy until the boss fight. This mission gives you a ton of opportunities to farm Devil Trigger before getting into a fight, as it has a ton of optional enemies just lying around. This is also the mission that introduces the Furies, and when you hit them with a JCE, they die in about 3 of them. But they are very annoying in this run because sometimes if I was to do a JCE, they would just start dashing around the place and would just avoid my Judgment current completely and would not get affected. And this happens a good bit, and that means that I pretty much wasted a Judgment current and some Sin Devil Trigger. You have to catch them in a specific time to actually affect them, which got pretty annoying at times. But as long as I wouldn't take any damage, spamming 4 JCEs would have eventually one-hit him. During this mission, there's also fights that I'd be able to skip, which naturally I did. You also get introduced to Baphomets in this level properly. You've had them back in mission 1, but you know, you don't have to fight them. Normally, they're pretty easy to kill. Here, they're not that bad to deal with actually. They mostly have range attacks, and so it can be a bit of a pain trying to farm Devil Trigger because they can just spawn ice from the ground and I'd need to jump. In this fight, this wasn't an issue because I went into this with a full Sin Devil Trigger bar and only got hit, which did cost me my motivation meter, but once I started hitting them with Judgment currents, they couldn't do nothing about it. They died in about 2, and there was also a Proto Angelo here. And again, as long as I didn't get hit, I would be fine. Why, you thought I was gonna get hit and die? Have some faith in me, like... There was also another fight I could skip, so I therefore did so. And then the next fight was against more Baphomets and nobodies. I didn't have Devil Trigger this time, so I had to jump around and camera trick to not get hit. Then I get hit mid Judgment current. And then I hit the nobody. And I had to reset. Kill me. I do it properly this time, and now it is on to Urizen. Oh boy. Before Urizen, there was a few enemies that I used to farm Devil Trigger. Unfortunately, every time Urizen killed me, I had to refarm my DT. But don't worry, because I only died like 7,431 times to him. So in this fight, you have to break the crystal. It is really not as easy as it sounds. You would think a Judgment current would just wreck it. No, that's a deep stinger's job. So first and foremost, the Devil Trigger that I farmed on the enemies before the fight, right? That would be the most damage I do in fast succession because there's a bit of an issue. It is really hard to farm Devil Trigger here. First of all, jump cancelling the crystal was about as useful as having to go to the pause menu to listen to an audio log in a video game instead of being able to do so while playing the game.
You have 1 missed call.
Dante, I'm trying to fight these demons, but I'm dummy thick and the clap of my ass keeps alerting them. I understand you and Nero have the same problem.
So yeah, not very. That was quite troublesome. But okay, what about taunting? Yeah, nope. I would rarely get any opportunities to hit a taunt that would build up my Devil Trigger. I'd always get interrupted in some way. So yeah, I'm in a bit of a predicament here. Once I run out of Sin Devil Trigger, both ways that I used to farm DT throughout this entire run are unusable here pretty much, which means I cannot really do damage. Or can I? There are 2 things that I could do. The first thing is dodge. If I dodge an attack right as it's about to hit me, if I trick left, right, or up, I get a small amount of Devil Trigger. The easiest move to dodge was the big red fireball. And luckily, Urizen has a chain of attacks that he does where he spawns in a laser, lets it slide to the right, summons a second laser, and as the lasers are moving around, he shoots out 2 red balls. And if I manage to trick up at the right time, I get free Devil Trigger. So now this comes down to my ability to dodge attacks competently. And the second thing is, Urizen's crystal takes the tiniest bit of damage every time he uses one of his attacks. It's barely noticeable, but in a run like this especially, the knowledge is very helpful. So yeah, now I just have to play well and dodge everything. These rounds took up a while, so if I died, that's a lot of time wasted. Then after a good while, I managed to take out the crystal. And then I preemptively turn off Sin Devil Trigger on accident and do not land a hit on Urizen, so therefore, before I can regen my Sin Devil Trigger bar, Urizen has regened his crystal. You are really watching a genius at work here. I have been playing this game religiously for the last 3 years, by the way. So yeah, I die. And then I die again. But then I actually get him. Then he stands up. But it's okay because I can just die and the mission is complete. So yeah, this is fine. For now. Mission 9 starts off with optional enemies which I used to farm Devil Trigger with. And honestly, the entire mission was a breeze. Especially compared to the last one. Even the fight with the 2 Lusashas wasn't hard since I farmed Devil Trigger before it could damage me. The fight with the 2 Protos and Death Scissors, I lost like half my health. But the Death Scissors died after a few JCEs. And Protos were really easy to farm Devil Trigger on as long as I don't get hit. And this mission doesn't even have a boss fight. It's just a few nobodies that I jump cancelled and Judgement could ended them to death. At the start of mission 10, I take some really stupid hits from the Impusas and somehow lose a quarter of my health to them. Naturally, I then proceed to obliterate them. I then reset because I damaged the Impusa Queen with a Devil Trigger activation after I got grabbed. But at least I didn't get hit by the Impusas this time. I ran out of Sin Devil Trigger before killing the Impusa Queen, but once again they're really easy to jump cancel off of, so it wasn't an issue. The next fight was also really easy. So moving on, we fight Chaoses. I went into this fight with no Devil Trigger, so Tante think it is. Now these guys can spin dash at you, but if I had a Judgment Current before they hit me with the spin, it will instantly break their shell. Then 2 more spawn afterwards, and as I try to farm Devil Trigger, they smack me around a bunch. But once I get it, they die in about 4 Judgment Currents. This fight against a single Fury got so annoying. First off, I had to reset checkpoint because I accidentally parried it. I also had to build up Devil Trigger because I went into this fight without any, and this Fury would also avoid my Judgment Currents completely. Then it would hit me, causing me to lose my motivation meter, so I turn off Sin Devil Trigger to not lose it, and then I have to build up a bit of both again. And I swear I just kept avoiding my Judgment Currents. But I eventually managed to take out this stubborn Fury. I literally left this fight with a quarter of my health. I used some optional enemies to farm some Devil Trigger and got hit. That certainly doesn't help my low HP issue. Luckily, the next fight was really straightforward and gave me a heal, so happy days. I also performed a glitch which allows me to skip a fight. I also performed a glitch which allows me to skip a fight just to save myself the effort. And then, oh great, another Fury. And yes, this one also almost killed me too. Oh, and there was also bats here. Moving on, a few Angelos have to die next. And a Baphomet. I almost got killed by the Proto Angelo, but luckily I hit the Judgment Current just in time, and the Skotos died fast and healed me. And the Proto as always isn't an issue either, because as long as it doesn't hit me as I farm Devil Trigger, I'm good. Then we fight Urizen again! This time though I can just die. It's okay, I don't have to break the crystal. Mission 11 starts off with, oh my god, are you serious? I almost died again. Moving on, at least the next fight was easy. Too bad it didn't heal me. Next up, I had to fight Skotos, a Proto, and a Nobody, with 2 bars of health. I get hit once, I die. Fortunately, I killed the Skotos fast and they give me a heal, yay! The Nobody hit me and cost me some motivation meter, that's always fun, but it's okay, cause I got it. So I went into Cavaliere Angelo, for some reason thinking it's gonna be a walk in the park. I could not have been more wrong. First of all, I went into this fight with only over half of my health, but I did farm some Devil Trigger from the tentacles. Biggest issue here was that I got hit. A lot. Whether it was from trying to jump cancel right before a Judgment Current or right after one, I would end up getting hit and therefore getting killed. I couldn't really taunt either because I would usually end up getting hit by an attack. Unless he'd do his charge up where I would have a window to pull it off, but other than that, yeah, no. So needless to say, I was stuck on this for ages. His teleport attack where he does a 3-hit combo is devastating if it hit me. And oh boy, it hit me. And yeah, I just keep dying or get hit where I really shouldn't have because I'm slow or something. And then later in the fight where he gets more aggressive, he shoots out lightning at me and then charges right after. So I'd have to dodge both the attacks and then pretty much without any way to counter. And yeah, if he hit me mid Judgment Current, that's my motivation meter gone. And I'd have to exit out of Sin Devil Trigger to preserve it, which is just annoying. And of course, if he Devil Triggered, he did more damage. So yeah, I even struggled to get him under half his health for a while. So clearly I needed a better tactic. First of all, after every Judgment Current, I would jump backwards so that I would avoid getting hit before pulling off another one. To minimize the damage I took, and speaking of, I clearly focused more on damage than actually avoiding getting hit during my initial attempts, I ended up being more patient with my Judgment Currents, and to farm Devil Trigger, I played cautiously and dodged all of his attacks, kinda like I did with Urizen. This was actually better to do than with Urizen because I actually had more opportunities to dodge projectiles, sword combos, etc. And dodging wasn't that bad. I just had to be consistent with it. And yeah, when he did his charge up attacks, I'd have an opportunity to pull off a taunt to get some extra easy DT. And then yeah, like I said, when it comes to damaging him, after every Judgment Current, I would just jump back a bit to avoid getting hit. And after a while, okay, yeah, like 2 hours, but still, I finally won. Barely. Get me out of this mission. Mission 12 was brutal. I actually had to restart the entire mission because I went into the boss fight with too little health, but more on that in a bit. And looking back at it, it's actually quite convenient for me now that I did the mission twice because it appears that I have lost all the footage for the first run of this level. This mission can trap you in these things. Luckily that didn't happen to me, so anyway. The first fight is against a few Hell Antinors and a Lusasha. It started off firing projectiles at me, but it was too late because the Judgment Current killed everything really fast. In this mission you can actually do a few skips that would minimize the amount of fights I could do. Although me telling you this information here in this run is absolutely pointless as I would have to use the Yamato and Mirage it to do so. So we have to play the mission normally. The next fight is not worth talking about, really easy. But then we get to double Furies. Oh boy. I went into this fight with almost no Devil Trigger or Sin Devil Trigger, so I had to camera trick. Once filled up, I got hit during the third Judgment Current and lost all my motivation meter. Luckily, I did manage to kill one of them. Then I just filled up and killed the second one. That is, of course, after I took a few hits and lost half of my health, but nevertheless, we move on. The next room had a spawner, which I used to farm Devil Trigger with by jump cancelling. Then killed it and all the bats too. And Pusa Queen wasn't an issue, just jump cancel and then Judgment Current. Now, this next fight I had to get right because this was the last fight before the boss fight. And luckily, I came out of it with a full health bar. On my first run, I came out of it with only a quarter of my health, which definitely wasn't fun on the boss fight. I camera tricked to get my Sin Devil Trigger and the Baphomets died fast to Judgment Current. The Nobody took a few more JCs but also went down eventually. This room was annoying to farm Devil Triggering because the Nobody would just constantly get in my face, but we got there. And now, there was Urizen. This time though, I had to beat him. No story death halfway through, no sitting on throne phase. It was Urizen standing up, fighting, and I had to win. This broke me. This was easily the hardest part of the run so far. So first of all, the reason I reset the mission on the first run was because I literally was one shot to his tentacle attack, which is also his most annoying attack. On its own, it's not too bad to dodge if you know how to, but if he shoots out a laser or another attack and then does the tentacle, it gets more difficult. So I kept on dying and dying without even managing to make a dent in the crystal. I pretty much died the moment the fight started a lot of the time. So yeah, I came back with a full health bar and look, god damn it! Nope, it did not help at all. See, the biggest issue I was having was the fact that I couldn't break the crystal a single time before dying. And also, yeah, dying was another issue. And also building up Sin Devil Trigger. Okay, so there was quite a few issues here. I would get hit by a tentacle while trying to farm Devil Trigger because I dodged too late. I'd get hit by a fireball when trying to pop a Judgment Current and having to exit to preserve it. It was not fun. I kept on dying before I could break the crystal even a single time. And you had to do it a few times during the fight. And yeah, in this fight his crystal still takes damage whenever he throws an attack, but that's really not useful if I keep on getting hit and dying. So, how exactly did I beat him since I couldn't even break his crystal once? See, I used the hidden tactic that only 1% of the entire DMC community knows. I used gold orbs. Yep, I really was not having it anymore that session. I spent like 3 hours trying to kill him. I just gave in and used gold orbs. And I used 4 to be exact. I died 4 times during the winning attempt. I do not think that there was a chance in hell of me winning if I just kept restarting checkpoint during this fight. So yeah, a gold orb would fully refill my health and Devil Trigger, meaning I basically get free Judgment Currents. So eventually I broke the crystal and the damage on Urizen was actually really good from them. It's just every time he regened the crystal, my only way of gaining Devil Trigger would have been dodging his attacks since I couldn't jump cancel the crystal. And by the way, the winning attempt was 16 minutes long on this fight. So if I was to do it without gold orbs, I'd have to literally be Donguri for 16 minutes straight. And I'm just gonna say this, if I allowed myself to use Deep Stinger and Hell on Earth, this would have been so easy because Deep Stinger kills Urizen's crystal so easily. But unfortunately the rules are the rules. So yeah, 4 gold orb revivals it took, but he died. Not too happy about it, but whatever. Moving on. At least Urizen is done. For now. Mission 13 was easy. The only fight I actually had to do was against the Lusasha at the beginning, which granted took a lot of my health away due to its projectiles, but it died in literally 2 Judgment Currents. And for the rest of the mission, I literally only have to focus on killing the spawners and Clive roots, which was really easy because the spawners are great for farming Devil Trigger. And I used this 1 chaos to farm Devil Trigger from taunts at the end to kill the Clive root. Mission 14 was a boss rush. Oh no, Artemis, please not again. Oh, and Cavaliere Angelo too? Game, you are spoiling me. It was not that bad. The mission 14 variants of these bosses are way weaker than when you fight them for the first time. Artemis literally died in 4 JCs. I used the same tactic to farm Devil Trigger on her by jump cancelling and tricking up to her. Then Cavaliere took a lot of my health, but dodging his attacks gave me Devil Trigger and he died in like 6 Judgment Currents. And then Goliath took 8, which I just jump cancelled off of him to get. And that was that. Mission 15 is up next, and I took the route where you cannot get hit by the spikes. As Nero, you would be able to jump over all of this using Gerbra and his triple jump. cannot say the same for Virgil, especially with pretty much my entire moveset restricted. So I had to do a few extra fights. They were all mostly just riots and pyrobats though, so pretty easy. I say that even though I lost half my health, but don't look at that. It got pretty sketchy with another Lusasha as it did its explosive move, but I used my jumping iframes to dodge it, farmed up some Sin Devil Trigger and killed it and the 2 Chaoses. 2 Behemoths up next, and as they were spawning, I used taunts to farm a load of DT. 8 Judgement Currents somehow wasn't enough to kill them both, as one died but the other one hit me before I could use another Judgement Current. So I had to farm my DT back and also my motivation meter. So I kind of just circle around this thing until I farmed up enough, cause, you know, Behemoths are scary when they double trigger. And then I kill it. I stopped to do an optional fight in hopes of getting some heals. I did not get any, but luckily the next fight was piss easy and gave me a heal. And then there was Malphus. And I don't know why I keep thinking that these boss fights will be easy, but they like end up being the hardest part of the challenge. Malphus wasn't the hardest part of this run, but still ended up being pretty difficult. For starters, I had pretty much no Devil Trigger or Sin Devil Trigger to start off the fight with, so I first had to farm for it. I tried to taunt first, but actually pulling one off is very rare here. It can happen, but not a lot, and I just end up taking a hit during it. Jump cancelling was my best bet, but if I didn't dodge an attack or time it correctly, I take a big hit, losing my motivation. All in all, the jump cancelling isn't really the hard part. The issue came about after a few Judgement Currents. Malphus would enter a rage mode and would start running around the arena like crazy. This got me killed a couple times because I failed to dodge it. One hit takes about a quarter of my health away, but if I did actually manage to dodge it, I get a good bit of DT, so that's good. The other issue is that the move where Malphus sinks into the ground. See, if I do not have any Devil Trigger or Sin Devil Trigger as Malphus is coming out of the ground, he's, you guessed it, gonna kill me. And there is not a chance in hell that I'd be able to farm up enough Devil Trigger in the amount of time you get. So whenever I got to that bit, I had to make sure that I actually have Devil Trigger so I can start doing Judgement Currents to get it out of the ground. But luckily, on the winning attempt, I managed to kill Malphus before it went underground. I did not even get hit once. Every attempt on jump cancelling went flawlessly. Mission 16 was really nothing special up until the boss fight, so let's just go through this quickly. The first fight got a bit hectic, so I just reset and collected a bunch of white orbs around the place to make life easier for myself. And I suppose it's also worth noting that I almost died to a Behemoth, but that's about it really. For once, I also had an easy time killing a Fury in this run. So yeah, pretty easy, right? King Cerberus though. I went into this fight with only half of my health bar. I once again thought that this boss fight will be easy. And I actually wasn't that wrong this time. It took me a couple of tries, yeah. The ice phase was a bit of an issue, yeah, because I wouldn't really get the chance to do damage or gain Devil Trigger, but it was still a lot easier than some of the other bosses. First of all, King Cerberus is massive, so he is really easy to jump cancel off of and get Devil Trigger. His health bar is pretty big though, so it did take a while. I used the fire phase exclusively to jump cancel and farm Devil Trigger. Then when he turned to lightning, that's when I attack. And I'd usually try enough Judgement Currents for the ice head to get knocked out, having him have to go back to fire, which was my main strat, to have him keep rotating between fire and lightning and just completely avoid ice. If I took damage, what I would do is activate Sin Devil Trigger, wait a second until the bar starts going down, as that way it would start healing me. So I'd get heals while doing Judgement Currents, which was useful. So this was pretty much an endurance fight. I just had to make sure that he didn't get to ice, which happened, but whatever. Most of the time I managed to knock out his ice head, so I just had him switching between fire and lightning. And also you cannot kill Cerberus during phase switches, so when he went to switch with literally 0 health left, I ran out of Sin Devil Trigger. Luckily he switched to fire though, so I farmed it back and then I killed him. Mission 17 up next, and are you f***ing kidding me? Urizen again? Game, I cannot express enough how happy I am. So I went into this fight thinking it was gonna be easier than the last one, simply because in this fight Urizen didn't have this crystal. I then proceeded to get stuck on this boss fight for hours. I even took a break to go get McDonald's in between. So, Urizen, oh Urizen. First of all, his health bar is massive, which did not help at all. I was able to get through the first 2 phases of the fight, well, relatively fine, kinda-ish. I take a lot of early hits, which would mess me up a lot. Jump cancelling Urizen constantly for an extended period of time without attacking is very annoying. But I would lose a lot of health in phase 1. He'd kick me a lot. I learned a while into the run that I'd be able to pull off 2 taunts at the beginning that fill up my DT. I'd get 4 Judgement Currents out of it, and that is better than nothing, even though that it still didn't do that much damage. It sped things up a bit though. And if I was low on health during phase 2, that was the phase in which I would try to heal myself. I would usually end up losing even more health or die, but whatever. I try to farm Devil Trigger by avoiding his moves and such instead of jump cancelling during that phase. Urizen throws out these purple things, right? If I destroy them, you get free Devil Trigger. Now obviously I couldn't destroy them normally, but if I destroy them with a Judgement Current, I'd both damage Urizen and get the Devil Trigger back for it too. So it's pretty good. But then phase 3, which was the bane of my existence, which once again broke me. First off, he Devil Trigger, so he does more damage and tanks more hits, which is not ideal. And yeah, he kept on killing me. So first of all, he will summon spikes from the ground, but here's a fun fact. He only summons them on where the red thing is on the ground. He doesn't actually spawn them everywhere, so if you're standing on grass, you're safe. So all I had to do was find a patch of grass, which worked most of the time. A bunch of times I get caught in it, but whatever. But then he does follow-up attacks, which those caught me and killed me alright. A lot. He also plants lasers onto the ground. On their own, they're okay, but they caught me a lot as I was trying to jump cancel him or avoid another attack, which sucked too. If I avoided one attack, the laser was sure to hit me. Or I'd also jump into the laser like a complete buffoon. Or even if I was just jump cancelling him, he'd just smack me or something, doing a lot of damage to me. And I couldn't really taunt or anything too, because he was just too aggressive. All this made for a painful experience that went on for hours and a McDonald's break. So, how did I beat him exactly? I think you probably guessed it by now. I used gold orbs. Again. Okay, listen, I'm not happy about it either, okay? Especially considering that I had this run where he was literally one Judgement Current away from death, which just made me annoyed because I knew I could beat him without them. But yeah, I was just getting angry at that point, so I did just end up popping a gold orb. So yeah, gold orb, and I did win. Again, not happy about it, but whatever, moving on. Mission 18 was much easier. The Malay Island gang was nothing compared to Urizen. For Griffin, I camera tricked and taunted to build up Devil Trigger. I jump away if he got on screen, and then 4 Judgement Currents was enough to make him run away. In fact, I don't think Griffin fired off a single attack. I used optional enemies to build up Devil Trigger and Sin Devil Trigger, and then Shadow wasn't a problem either. He took 1 extra Judgement Current than Griffin, but luckily since I built up DT from the ads, farming wasn't a problem. I once again used optional enemies for Devil Trigger, and then it's both Griffin and Shadow. And here you don't even have to focus on Griffin. As long as Shadow takes enough damage, both will flee. Griffin managed to land a few shots on me as I was doing the last Judgement Current, but it was too late as right after both of them ran away. I went back to the optional enemies for Devil Trigger, and now it's time for all 3 of them, Griffin, Shadow, and Nightmare. This was so easy. I reset checkpoint because I was low health and Nightmare healed. And I also did die once because he managed to heal himself and then hit me a bunch while in Devil Trigger, but that's literally the extent of my trouble. I started the fight by taking over half of his health bar away because Judgement Currents do a lot of damage to him. Funny enough, all of these stacks also got Griffin and Shadow, so when Nightmare disappeared, I managed to freely taunt and refill my Devil Trigger. When he comes back, he will always try to heal Griffin and Shadow, but it's at the expense of his own health. So pairing that with a bunch of Judgement Currents does some chunky damage to him. I then jump cancel him to get my Devil Trigger back. He tries to heal, but it is too late as I hit him with a Judgement Current, which staggers him, hit him again, and one final time to kill the orb and send Nightmare, Griffin, and Shadow back to Devil May Cry 1. Now, the moment we have all been waiting for, the last 2 missions in the game. Both are Dante boss fights. This is what we have been building up to this entire video. Dante versus Virgil. This is the most intense fight of all time. Wait, what the hell is this? Yeah. This is pretty much how the entirety of Dante 1 looked like. It was also a 1 attempt. It was first try. I went into this fight worried that I'd have no way of farming Devil Trigger since jump cancelling Dante is hard and taunting is not an option since he would attack me. But, yeah. See, this started off with me just doing this to dodge his bullets, but evolved into full-on spamming it. And, yeah, it worked like a charm. After I'd fill it up, I'd do all the Judgement Currents I could, do a perfect dodge, and start spamming this again. Plus, a lot of the Judgement Currents would knock Dante onto the ground, which gave me an opportunity to do the next one right away. I'd get hit a bunch when going into a dodge, but honestly, it didn't even matter. Even when he Devil Triggered, it didn't matter either, because the Judgement Currents just wrecked him, and as long as I kept spamming dodge, I was in... But alright, Dante 2. This is the fight that we have all been waiting for. I used the same strat and it worked. Okay, but for real though, this was a bit harder than Dante 1, but still nowhere near as hard as some of the other stuff earlier in the game. Dante has a different moveset this time. He'd use King Cerbus and double Kalina Ann, etc. But to be honest, as long as I kept dodging, it didn't even matter. He would enter Sin Devil Trigger, and if he did the loose, then for me, that's just a lot of DT build-up in very quick succession. If I did a Judgement Cut in while he was entering Sin Devil Trigger, he would sometimes iframe through it, and it would be a waste, which would be annoying. annoying, but it's just back to dodging then. I did die a few times or reset because I hit Dante or something, and the reason I died is because near the end of the fight, Dante would do this move called Judgement, and if he hit me with it, it kills my health bar, and instead of jumping away, I tried to dodge and failed miserably. I died a few times to that, and also I jumped into a cascade once, but apart from that, it wasn't that bad. I jumped away from the Judgement, and near the end of the fight, I'd only do 1 or 2 Judgement currents at a time just to be safe, and eventually jackpot! Dante did indeed die, and the game has been completed. So, is it possible to beat the entire game using only Judgement currents? Yes it is. Now granted, some gold orbs have been used here and there. I'm still pretty bummed out about those, especially the mission 17 one, because I just knew that if I tried for another while longer, I'd manage to win. But nevertheless, every enemy has been killed using only Judgement currents. Some bits weren't that bad, others were absolutely torturous, but overall I'm pretty happy with this run. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, leave a like and subscribe. Please, I put a lot of effort into this, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.